Hey comic book fans, welcome to the first issue of No Capes. This is where I talk about all the books that I read that aren't really superhero oriented or aren't superhero oriented at all. I do collect quite a few books that aren't in the superhero genre. I like all kinds of comics, and so this is where we're going to look at all the other stuff that doesn't fit in the superhero genre or isn't attached close enough to it that that I think I want to talk about them here. I had a debate with myself on whether or not I was going to put Swamp Thing in this group and whatnot. It's close enough into the new DC 52 stuff that I'm going to keep it lumped in with that under the standard superhero type comic, even though it's not exactly that. Anyway, this is No Capes, and a reminder out the front. I do talk about plots and characters and spoil things, so this is your spoiler warning. If you're planning on reading any of the titles that you see down there in the tags, you want to read them before you watch this because I might wreck something for you otherwise. Okay, first off, I'm going to talk about Severed. This is a book written by Scott Snyder and Scott Tuft, with art by Attila Futaki, I'm guessing is how you say it. This is issue number 3. This is a pretty much a straight up horror type comic in the sense that, well, there are bad people in it doing bad things. It's got a suspenseful element to it. It is set in the story is being told sometime around the Great Depression. It's about a young boy who's trying to find his dad. His dad is supposed to be a violinist playing in a in some sort of an orchestra in Chicago. This boy is also a violinist. He is actually an orphan. Well, he's not an orphan. He had an adopted mother, well, he had an adopted father. He lived with his mother. If I remember correctly, it's been a while now since the very beginning when they introduced the characters. At any rate, he has run away from home, rode a train to Chicago, runs into all the bad people that would be hiding away on a train to Chicago during that era. Gets saved by a friend, Sam, who ends up being, you think he's a boy, and in reality he's a girl. The two of them hook up together and try to find the main character's father. Find out that the father is actually not in town anymore, that he's actually gone to Mississippi, I believe. So they're figuring out how now to get enough money to go there. In the process of going there, the kid plays his violin to collect lots of money so they can get themselves a ticket. They run into some other interesting characters along the way. There's one character who is our villain, we'd assume. He seems to either be vampiric in some way, he's eating them in some way, he's doing something to them. And after he kills them, he takes on their personalities, kind of. Becomes them, kind of. And right now he's acting as a music representative. Well, being that music representative, he runs into our main character and is trying to convince him that he should go along with him. Issue number 3 felt maybe a little slow. It felt a lot like issue 2. We moved forward a little bit, but I don't know we moved forward a whole lot. It built some suspense, though. I'm enjoying this book. I think that, I'm going to pick up the rest of them. I'm thinking that this would probably work really, really well as a trade because the building of suspense would be maintained, whereas because I'm collecting it as a single, that break of 30 days between issues, it loses some of that suspense that you get if you're reading it all at one time. Wait and see. I'm enjoying the comic. I think it's definitely a decent comic. I'm interested to see exactly how this guy is going to prey on them. At the end of this issue, he's conned his way into basically riding along with them on the train down to Mississippi to find the dad. Sam, the more streetwise of the two kids, is not real keen on this guy. People just aren't this friendly unless they're wanting something out of you. So, at least she's got her head tied on straight. So we'll see what happens. Looking forward to issue number 4 to see if it moves forward a little bit more. Like I said, the art is great for this style of thing. Okay, next up is John Constantine Hellblazer, number 284. By the way, that's the highest numbered title for DC and all of its affiliates now. Hellblazer. Not any of those other titles, no Action Comics, Hellblazer. I love this comic. I've always loved this comic. Even when it's not real great, I love this comic. Every time I've been collecting comics, I've been collecting this. I collected it before there was a Vertigo imprint. Pushed it on people then. I'd push it on people right now. Right now it's written by Peter Milligan, and he just writes a fabulous Constantine. He does the character so well. He brings up interesting stories, interesting plots. This issue in particular has a guest artist, and Gail Bertrand, and I'm not real familiar with this artist. They do a fine job in here. The last couple issues have been written by I'm assuming they're Italian guys by the way their names sound and whatnot. I can't remember them off the top of my head. And I've absolutely loved their art style. The covers for all these are great. They're by Simon Bisley. I love Simon Bisley's work. I love it when he does art in this. For a while there, they were doing some back in the 1970s, back when Constantine was a punk, and Simon did all the artwork back then. It absolutely rocked. His Epiphany, which is John Constantine's wife, is just absolutely gorgeous. I love the character anyway, but when he draws her, yeah, she'd come over to my house anytime. Anyway, this comic, this is a second issue of an arc that has to do with Constantine's trench coat. It was stolen by his niece Gemma. She sold it on the internet, and the coat is damn evil. I guess from having been worn by Constantine for so many years, it's picked up so much bad mojo that it's got its own personality, and it tends to possess people and has them do rotten things. This time around, it has ensnared a girl who's kind of mixed up in the fake occult and dark arts and whatnot. But somehow, when it tries swaying her to do bad things, she can somehow figures that out and gets rid of the code. But also, what it seems to be happening is crazy things seem to happen to Constantine, more so than normal. In this issue, he's working with Terry, who is his wife's father. He's a gangster. Constantine does not like the guy, but of course, it's your father-in-law. What are you going to do? Terry needs help with some mafia guys that are coming over from America that are squeezing him in his criminal activities. He wants them scared. Not anything bad happened to him, just really scared really good. So Constantine goes into the guys' hotel room and throws down some magic to supposedly scare the bejesus out of them. Well, what it ends up doing is it ends up basically ripping off the guys' heads and tossing them up in the sky and landing them all over the place and making a big gory mess. Oops. This is the second time that something weird has happened like this to Constantine since he lost his trench coat. Last issue, him and his wife ended up waking up, floating down the Thames in their bed. Yeah, so crazy stuff. Constantine can't figure out how to tie the two things together yet. Gemma's got another set of issues going on besides the trench coat. In some prior issues, John Constantine's evil soul twin that had been banished to hell had come up and done some really bad things to Gemma. She's trying to get back at John because of that, because she thinks it's John. She gets herself tied up with a bunch of nasty witch-type people who summon up a demon to kill Constantine. Well, Gemma ends up finding out that it really wasn't Constantine that did this bad stuff to her. She still is really mad at Constantine because it really is kind of his fault because he leaves all his loose ends around. Anyway, she's now trying to run from this witch cult that basically wants her to become one of them. She needs to murder somebody to become one of them, and they keep putting all kinds of mystical pressures on her to make her do so. she's been able to keep from doing it up to this point, but it's getting harder and harder for her to keep away from it. Well, now her and Epiphany are teamed up together. Epiphany says that she'll help her with the witches, but first they got to get the trench coat back. So now they're on a wild goose chase trying to get the trench coat back, while John is trying to sequester himself away and try to figure out what his problem is and get it straightened out before he hurts anybody else worse. Comic ends with our semi-occultist girl deciding that the trench coat is bad after the trench coat basically hangs her mother. So along with all of her occult books and whatnot, she piles up the coat on her back porch and lights it on fire to burn it all up. Well, the coat doesn't particularly care for that, and it looks like it's kind of rising up or trying to get away. Meanwhile, John, who's waiting for something to happen while he's been sitting out here in the middle of nowhere, waiting for the next thing to happen, suddenly his arm lights on fire from where the coat's lit on fire. And that's where the issue ends. So it'll be interesting to see how this all gets dealt with. Does John get his coat back? Does he kill his coat? And then them dealing with this big cult of really nasty witches. Could all be interesting. Love Peter Milligan's writing. Pretty much I don't care who's on art. I'm hoping we go back to the other artists here soon. I like their style, the group of them that are working on it. But this book is great. I always enjoy the character, and like I said, right now Peter Milligan has been knocking out of the park. These last issues and whatnot have been great. Wouldn't have ever thought that somebody could have married John off and it'd be palatable and enjoyable and make any kind of sense and whatnot. And they've done, and Peter Milligan's done this perfectly. Great book, fun covers. Yeah, this is a book that if you got an interest in that sort of thing, you should be reading it. Okay, next up is Casanova, written by Matt Fraction with art by Gabriel Ba. Love this book. I collected it when it first came out as an Image title. Now it's under the Icon imprint under Marvel. Read the back matter of this, and as of June is when Matt first started making money on these books. So I understand why he had to quit doing the Image version and go to this. The new version is full color, whereas the originals were monotones. To tell you the truth, I like those monotone books. I even picked up, they reissued all of those books under the Icon imprint and added colors to them. I like the old one better, but it doesn't matter. It's all good stuff. This issue has all the magic in it that I love about Casanova. It's just got so much crazy stuff going on. Our main character, Cass, he's off destroying realities and killing these particular guys and trying not to destroy realities. His dad's dying of cancer. I really couldn't go into just telling you just about this. You'd have to read the book. It's so awesome. It's so out there. Last issue didn't have so much of it in it. This one does. One of the fun things that's in this one is they get into a firefight where Cass is trying to kill this one man that he just goes to different realities and keeps whacking the same guy. But it's at a comic convention, and it's awesome. Cass is dressed up as a ninja. There's this giant line of characters standing there waiting to get their books signed by the person that Cass is supposed to kill. There's, of course, they aren't drawn exactly like the characters, but I mean, there's obviously a Wonder Woman there, Captain America, and all these other people dressed up. They all get caught in the firefight, and most of them get shot up and whatnot. I thought that was amusing. He gets to another version of wiping this guy out, instead of having all this crazy dialogue and whatnot, Cass comes flying down to take the guy out. He's out on this boat. He's a musician. This version of the guy, he's a musician, supposed to be out here sequestering himself away to, write the next great album or whatever. Cass lands down in kind of a super-sized suit with wings and whatnot, lands on top of the thing, pulls out his gun, getting ready to shoot the guards and whatnot, and he spouts, superfluous greetings, sod breath homage reference. And then he points his gun at everybody and says, "A quip to come." And then it says as he's shooting people up, homophobic sentiment disguised as nihilistic zinger. And as the guys are getting shot, one of the guys is saying filler line, another guy's he's getting shot is M dash syllable M dash, and as Cass is jumping off the boat shooting at more guys, in this still parentheses it's saying, cynical bullshit, and then he's saying hyperbolic auto commentary and self congratulations as he's beating all the guards. So instead of having all this silly dialogue that goes into this kind of action scene type stuff, they're just planting this stuff down. I love that. I love it when this book has the characters talking to us, the audience. There'll be these little breakaway segments, not in this one, but I just love this kind of crazy stuff. And it goes on. It goes on for a couple pages of that. And I love it. Because it's just so different for a comic. This is a sci-fi comic book, and it's got those elements in it, and they're awesome. All this other little, I don't know what you want to call it, meta or whatever, little weird stuff, and it's just fabulous. It's just, there are times when it's just like, whoa, it's mind-blowing stuff, and it's just so smart. It's so smart, and sometimes it's dumb, it's so smart. I love this book. I love reading Matt Fraction's back matter. He always has 3 or 4 pages in the back of either letters that people wrote to him and his responses to that, or what he's got going on and why he wrote the things he wrote. Interesting stuff to know stuff about Matt. The art is fabulous. I love Gabriel Ba. Fabio Moon does some of the artwork also on some of these books. I love his work too. Their work is similar and whatnot. The cover of this one's awesome. This book's just great because you just know you're going to have a trip. It's just going to be some wild trip. There is a plot line going through there and whatnot. I'm not going to get into it, like I said, because it's too complicated for me to try and explain. But even if you've never read one of these books, just start picking it up, accept what's going on for what it is, and enjoy the ride because it's just wild, and I love it. Anyway, that's Casanova. And actually, I guess I should say it's Casanova Aviarte. Yes. Anyway, next up is Northlanders. And this is part of the Icelandic trilogy. This is issue number 45, written by Brian Wood with art by Declan Shalvey, with colors by the ever incredible Dave McCraig. This is midway through a long arc of this one family conquering their chunk of Iceland and dealing with that. Absolutely love Northlanders. Some of you may know who followed this book know that it's been canceled. I can't remember exactly what issue it is that it gets canceled in. If it's 47 or 49. I know it's when the Icelandic trilogy is over with, that's when it's done. And the Icelandic trilogy is supposed to be 9 books, I think. 3 books for each trilogy, for each part of the trilogy. Absolutely love this book. This story in itself, there have been parts that have been interesting, parts that have been okay. Northlanders as a whole, to me, it's just a great book because I'm not a Viking fan. Could care less about Vikings. Picked this up because I'm a Brian Wood fan. Wanted to see what he had to do, and what he was saying. This is such a book about hard times, tough people, and raw choices. This is not a happy book. Very rarely does it ever end happy. It's just brutal life, and it's so good. It's so brutal and so good because it is so heavy and whatnot. I don't know how historically true things are to it. I think the dates have to be somewhat reasonable. I know the Brian Wood does lots and lots of study on these types of subjects. He's not just throwing bullshit out there. I mean, he's actually putting, he puts real effort into it. So I would believe that the dates are relatively accurate as to the style and what potentially was going on during those times and whatnot. Gorgeous book. Generally always has artists on it that just do fabulous artwork. This person's art that's doing it now, I really like. Colors are always fabulous. They're always in these dim tones that just set the tone for the book so well and whatnot. Fabulous covers. Sad to see this book go. This is a very, very smart book. I don't know if this is part of some Vertigo purge or whatnot. I'm wondering sometimes if that imprint is struggling when they're concentrating, DC's concentrating all their efforts on the relaunch stuff. But you know, I hope we get to see other books like this come out at some point. Ryan Wood continues to impress me. We'll be following his career. I know he's going on to do some stuff with Dark Horse and whatnot. I'll be picking up some of those titles. Hell, I love this so much. He's going to be doing a Conan title with Becky Cullen. The two of them together are awesome. I'll be picking that up, and I could care less about Conan because these books are so smart. I'm assuming that Conan book will hold more true to the Conan vein, and that's cool and all. But the guy writes such smart and interesting stuff that I'm going to pick it up and give it quite a few issues before I would consider it a failure and whatnot. Also, Dark Horse is going to be putting out what's called The Massive, I think next month from when I'm recording this thing, is when the first stories from it come out in Dark Horse Presents, and then like next June it becomes its own ongoing series. I'll probably be picking that up. I'm assuming it's going to be its own thing, but I'm sure to some degree fall within the veins of the core of this kind of story and the core of like DMZ and that sort of thing. Anyway, really, really like Northlanders. Sad to see it go. But we'll be talking about more of it before it's gone. Okay? And last up, I'm going to talk about a book I picked up. It's also by Vertigo. It's called The Unexpected. #1. This is a big book, which it better be a big book because it was $7.99. It's got, I don't know, a dozen stories in it, half dozen stories in it or so, written by a bunch of different people who have written for Vertigo in the past, or if I remember correctly, it's got some people like G. Willow Wilson, who wrote Air, and I believe right now she's writing Mystics for Marvel. Wrote a story in this. It's got Brian Wood in it. He wrote a story in it. Dave Gibbons did a story in it. Joshua Hale Falkov, who does iVampire, has a book in this. David Lampham does some artwork in this. I'm a huge fan of his. So lots of really interesting stories in this. Some of them are more interesting than others. It was a fun reading these short little things. I love anthology books, so giving me a book that's got a bunch of different stories in it, I'm all for that. I get a real kick out of that. Just to give you a flavor of some stuff in here, there's one about an escape artist in here who flirts with people a little too much, and it ends up being his demise. There's a book in here about a story in here about dogs and society that's fun. There's another story in here about a zombie, and I'm not a real zombie fan. This one's a fun zombie fan. It's about a female zombie who wants a man. Not necessarily eat, she just wants a man. And so she goes through all this work to get a man. She works really hard to not look like a zombie, to not stagger around, to pick up a man. It was kind of fun. Some fun art with it. There's a story in here about a Mexican deity monster that I really enjoyed. There's a story in here about genetically recreating a Neanderthal, and about a scientist who wants to keep that Neanderthal protected from the rest of society, and how that works or doesn't work out for him. The story in here that called Family First, that was written by Matt Johnson and David Lampham does the artwork for. It's a post-apocalyptic story that's pretty grim and has a pretty wicked ending to it. All this stuff has kind of a horror Vertigo type, bend to it. There's a story in here called Alone. Like I said, it's written by Joshua Hale Falkoff, art by Rashan Ekdal, I guess is how you say it. I'm not 100% sure on that. And colors by Jose Villabrania. Love the art for it, man. I'd like to see these guys doing some other work. I'm hoping I'm going to be looking them up on the internet to see what else they're doing. I really like the style of it, and I'm curious as to who made the decisions on the ghost that's in here when he moves to and from his house. The imagery that they use for that. I'm curious if that was a writer choice or if that was an artistic choice to make that pixelated breakup. It's cool. I like it. It's a good look and whatnot to it. The final story in here is Voodoo Child, and it's going to be an ongoing. It ends the book and says the story is going to pick up in a new Vertigo title called Voodoo Child. Not 100% sure if I'm going to pick it up or not. I do like the art here. There are the backstory was interesting. This kind of like sets the premise for a comic that's set in modern times that obviously has werewolves and vampires and that sorts of things in it, set in New Orleans. I'm not always a big fan of stuff that's set in New Orleans just because there's a lot of cliche stuff that goes on there. We'll see how this goes. I will probably pick up the first issue of it just to see what a full story about it is like. The art looks good. I don't know. Like I said, this gives us interesting backstory about where this character comes from, and generationally, it looks like the main character is related to the Queen of New Orleans. And by queen, I mean somebody who seemed to control the supernatural of New Orleans during the Civil War times and whatnot. So, I don't know. We'll see. Like I said, I'll probably pick up that first issue depending on what kind of a discount I get. Depends on whether I pick it up in my pull list or I pick it up off the shelf, so I'm not committed to a bunch of issues if I don't like the first issue. Anyway, that's it for this first edition of No Cape, and I hope you enjoyed it. Looking forward to talking more, and have a good one.